In the 1833 Book of Commandments Introduction to Section 5, it says, "A revelation given to Joseph and Martin in Harmony, Pennsylvania, March 1829, when Martin desired of the Lord to know whether Joseph had in his possession the record of the Nephites." Here's the backstory. Just over 1 year after Martin Harris had first traveled down from Palmyra to Harmony, Pennsylvania, and scribed for Joseph, he made another visit in March 1829. It had been nearly 8 months since Joseph had last seen Martin under the heartbreaking circumstance of the loss of the Book of Lehi manuscript. Much had happened with Joseph since then, including receiving D&C 3, repenting a lot, being authorized to translate again, and receiving D&C 4 on behalf of his father. Having heard something of Joseph's success, Martin was eager to visit Joseph, perhaps in part to be reconciled over the disaster of the lost manuscript, but primarily to ask Joseph for help concerning a highly distressing situation back home in Palmyra. Here's the details. Martin told Joseph that some people in Palmyra had risen up and united against the work, gathering testimony from supposed witnesses against the plates. And according to Joseph's mother, the person at the heart of this opposition was Martin's own wife, Lucy Harris. Apparently, having heard of Joseph's efforts to translate again, Martin's wife determined to prove this delusion false once and for all, before Martin was swindled out of his money and others bought into Joseph's deception. Joseph's mother said that Martin's wife mounted her horse and flew through the neighborhood like a dark spirit from house to house, making diligent inquiry at every house for miles, where she had the least hope of gleaning anything that would subserve her purpose, which was to prove that Joseph had not the record which he pretended to have. Martin's wife was seeking for incriminating evidence that Joseph only pretended to have gold plates for the express purpose of obtaining money from those who might be so credulous as to believe him. In time, Mrs. Harris felt she had gathered enough witnesses to bring a lawsuit against Joseph, which would implicate her husband as well. Martin said that Joseph's antagonists told him they had testimony enough, and if I did not put Joseph in jail and his father for deception, they would me. In other words, if the plates were fakes, then Martin was one of Joseph Smith's guilty accomplices who would mislead the public into buying copies of the fraudulent translation. The threat was, if Martin didn't help them expose Joseph's fraud now, he would soon be taken down along with it. So now here Martin stood before Joseph in desperation. In all his scribal help the previous spring, Martin had never actually seen the plates. And although, after what he had seen, he believed they were real, he felt he now needed to actually know with an absolute certainty that Joseph truly had in his possession the record of the Nephites. So that's the backstory.